Hello! Yeah, Cat here. Welcome to episode 29 of my Let's Play of Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time Master Quest. Be heading over to the Water Temple in a moment, the most hated temple in Zelda history. But first, before we face horrible doom, this is one more thing we have to do, one more side quest, and fortunately it's a quick one. You may remember at the end of the last episode that we got a scale because we managed to get a really big fish. And because of that, you're able to do this side quest. So what you need to do is dive down to the absolute bottom of this thing. Now that the scale allows you to dive deeper. I don't know how a scale helps you to breathe for longer underwater, but apparently it does. You can get those rupees on the bottom if your aim is good enough, but by diving down, but there's really not that much point. We have all the rupees we need for the moment. In fact, there's not much point in getting any rupees from this stage in the game, so the only really useful thing here was the piece of heart, although it is very useful. It's interesting how it starts raining as soon as you approach the outside Water Temple, as if it's been waiting for you to get there. Rains, as I think I may have discussed in a previous episode, is usually a great portent of doom in computer games and films. Although personally, I think if it represents anything, it's probably the fact that you're going to be going underwater and into a very oceanic, watery kind of environment. Anyway, the rain definitely seems to have something to do with the temple, as far as I can tell. Now, up until this point here, this is all footage that I actually recorded during my recording session for the previous episode, and that's why you may have got a glimpse for about a second of Ice Cavern at the beginning of this video, just before it gets into the main sort of thrust of the video, and that's because that was at the beginning of the previous recording session, if you see what I mean. So it was the beginning of the previous episode, but the previous episode ended up being too long, so I just kind of cobbled that footage together with this footage now, which is from the recording session for this episode. Of course, if you don't do your own Let's Plays, what I just said was probably boring and quite baffling, but I suppose I've got to have something to talk about. So, this temple, as I was saying, is quite infamous in Legend of Zelda games, but I've decided to approach it with no ideas in my head except my own about how I feel about the temple. I sometimes get the feeling that fans of the game are supposed to hate this temple just because everyone hates it, but I'm coming to it with fresh eyes, hopefully, and thinking about it in an utterly objective way. I don't really know what to say about Riku's appearance here. I'll leave it as Lake. He's quite surprised, obviously. Yeah. Okay, the years have been quite good to her. I'm gonna let you listen to music for a few seconds. She's a little less bossy, although the first thing she does say to you is, you do this thing that I'm ordering you to do. I think she might be more bossy if she had more time. Anyway, she just floats away there, and then she doesn't appear again except for a short sequence where, spoiler alert, you find out that she's the sage of water. Alright, I want to explain what happens here. I accidentally cut out a bit that I didn't mean to cut out. Basically, you need to float up 2 floors. You can float up 1 floor, and I did, but then I cut that out. So you need to float up 2 floors if you're playing this using my videos as a walkthrough or whatever, in order to get to the place that you're meant to be at. And the place you're meant to be at has this symbol on it. This is for changing the water level, basically. So then, what do I think of this temple? Well, I think there are good things about it. The sequence with Dark Link, which we'll probably be seeing in the next episode, it's quite interesting, and there's another sequence where you have to sort of move upriver, as it were, within the temple, which is quite a good bit, I suppose. Not that easy, but a good bit. And I really actually like these tiles with these buttons on them. I like the way the water sort of seems to shimmer over some of them. Not the ones in here, because there's no water in here at the moment. But I think the shimmery effect with water works quite well. I think there's a good atmosphere created by these very cool sort of blue tiles, a very watery kind of atmosphere. I think the music is quite sort of oceanic and watery as well. I think the music suits the kind of mood of the temple. I don't like the music that much because I think it's quite boring and it doesn't have enough hooks in it, or enough caption hooks, since we're in the underwater. That was a terrible joke. The underwater, or just a underwater? I don't know. Anyway, we're underwater. But yeah, I quite like these sort of symbols. It's interesting the way those symbols, even if they're a bit low res, in all of the temples. But if most of them are actual temples, that does make sense. It's actually surprising. You get the compass and the map and the treasure in rapid succession very early on, assuming you're managing to navigate the temple. I think that's mostly because you really need this dungeon's treasure to be able to progress through most of the dungeon. But this is probably the earliest, this is probably the quickest in any of the temples that you manage to get through the 3 most important items of the dungeon. Why did that fall not kill Link? If that fall had been in Forest Temple, it would have killed Link. According to the Link's Dead theory, if that fall had been in Majora's Mask, Link would have died. So why is he perfectly unharmed when he falls down there? Anyway, yes, I do think the music is atmospheric, even if I don't like it. I wish there were more albums that had not exactly identical music to that, but more of an oceanic kind of sound. I don't know if anyone would like to suggest an album I might like in the comments section. The only sort of oceanic album that I can think of is Leviathan by Mastodon. That has sort of a watery sound, and I think there's one by Funeral for a Friend that sounds quite oceanic as well. But apart from that, there isn't a lot of oceanic albums. So anyway, apart from the music and a couple of other good things about it, I'll admit this is a very annoying temple, even if looking at it objectively. It's very complicated. I am using a strategy guide, and I'm not ashamed to admit that. You do have to put in that start again if you make a mistake, and it'll probably take you quite a while to realise what the mistake you made was, because it's all about changing the water level, and so if you make a mistake with water level, it won't be at the right level for you to do the next thing you have to do. So there's that, and changing the water level frequently gets a bit annoying, and having to switch constantly between the Kukui boots and the iron boots gets very annoying as well. I've heard on for the 3DS version that they've arranged things in an easier way to make it quicker for you to do that. But yeah, there's that. I think music has a lot to do with the way a dungeon is, and this music is a bit disappointing. So that maybe affects my feelings about it. Now, the long shot is pretty useful not only in this dungeon, but outside of this dungeon as well. It will allow us to complete some side quests that we couldn't complete before. So I admit, this is a very helpful dungeon item. Again, how did he survive that? I suppose that pool was just there because that was the deepest that the water got to. I suppose this is just where there's always go to worship, and so that's why it's underwater, because they're underwater, they're water kind of creatures. See, like these towels here, I'll admit I do like the patterns on these towels. I suppose I ought to have a quick word about editing. I've kept almost all of the footage in. There's a couple of bits where I made mistakes, and watching those bits will just be very boring, basically. So I've gone rid of those bits, but apart from that, I kept everything in here. I sort of get the impression this is the smallest temple as well, the shortest one in terms of what you have to do. I'm not quite sure why, how I get that impression. Maybe it's because the fire temple felt quite long. You need to be in exactly the right place, by the way, as usual, to get the time block to work here. But yeah, it seemed to me that because the fire temple ends with a large number of rooms that have a lot of stuff to do in them but aren't very distinguishable from each other, maybe that made it felt long. and this feels quite short but fiddly. I have to say, I wish the Kukui didn't choose green as their colour, although I suppose it makes sense because they live in the forest. But I think Link actually looks better in red and blue than he does in green. So it's a pity you couldn't wear red or blue earlier in the game. Never mind. See that water shimmer on the walls there? I think that looks quite good. Unfortunately I chose the wrong door there. So I'm going to have, in a couple of days time, I'm hopefully going to have the next episode of my Star Trek Let's Play up. I hope you enjoyed the first episode. I've been watching a lot of Legend of Zelda theories on YouTube recently. Some quite interesting ones. One of them is that the sages are in fact dead and have been for some time, and that's how they're able to be sages. Really, because if you think about it, Link is the only person who gets to see them during his adulthood, and Darunia probably died trying to defeat Vagina, and if you think about it, Sarai might be dead. I don't know. I don't remember the full theory, but I'm trying to think of stuff to say here. There isn't really a lot to say about this temple, to be honest. So yeah, and we get to see Ruto here. It is indicated though that she is alive and has been unfrozen, but then she just disappears. And that's quite interesting, because if you think about it, all of them just sort of disappear, don't they? Darunia sort of disappears, and then you see him again at the end as the forest stays. Saria sort of doesn't really see Link as an adult. She only sees him at the end, where it's revealed that she's a sage. Darunia only really sees him twice as an adult for a short amount of time, so maybe. I mean, I advise you, if you're interested, to look up some of these theories. They really are fascinating. I always thought that's quite an evil looking head statue there. One thing I have noticed about Zelda theories is they don't seem to take into account the fact that it's a Japanese game, and looking at it through Western eyes in the face of Western culture doesn't always make a lot of sense. I'll give you an example here. in Mario Twilight Galaxy, there are these things called Sky Valley trees, which you can sort of see the shadow of. These ghostly figures. They're standing sort of on the very edge of one of the levels in the game. I don't remember which one. And so everyone kind of said, "Oh, they're ghosts," you know. And but there are in fact tree spirits which exist, which like living trees, obviously, and these figures closely resemble them. But you wouldn't know that if you weren't Japanese. Now that doesn't prove that they're not ghosts. It doesn't really tell you what they are, but there's a good chance that they're actually these tree spirits. So for some reason the strategy guide told me to go to the bottom here and then to float back up to the place that I'd just been at. I'm really not sure why it did that, since there doesn't seem to be any point to it. Perhaps it's just a badly written guide. I don't know. Perhaps they thought you'd end up on the opposite side of this gap, and so they're telling you to go over to this side. I don't know. So you have to switch to the iron boots again. Switching is just endless during the early part of this. I think that it gets more interesting later. I think one thing you can see whilst you're playing this is sort of the structure. There's kind of one brick on another, if you see what I mean. You need to change the water level to get here, and from here that means you can do this, which means you can do that, which means you can do that, which means you can do that. I think one thing this temple does show off, if you can manage to navigate it properly and not make any mistakes, is sort of the structure of the dungeon in terms of the way it works, in terms of you do this and then you do that, and that allows you to do this and that allows you to do this. It's well structured in that way, but that implies that you're not fumbling around just trying to work out what door to go in next. If you are, you probably won't notice this whole structure. Now when you jump down here, there are spikes on either side. You'll see what I mean in a minute. So you need to try your best not to land on the spikes, because they do hurt. So try to get into a sort of central position before you put the iron boots on. Actually, come to think of it, since you have the tunic, I'm not sure if you could have gotten that earlier heart piece from the water laboratory by just wearing the tunic, which allows you to breathe underwater. I don't know. I actually thought I cut this bit out. It's a bit boring. It is very hard to break these crates with the correct sense of timing when you've whilst you're wearing the iron boots and you're underwater. I really don't like these spiky creatures. They only need to be sort of hit twice, if you see what I mean. And for a little while there, I actually forgot that you needed to use a long sword. I thought you could use it with a sword. Why you can't use a sword underwater, I don't know. Why, when it has no pockets and it's not got a bomb anywhere within itself, it has no way to carry a bomb, and no part of its body is made of bomb. Why it drops a bomb? I don't know. How you're supposed to know that you need to do that in order to get to the switch, I don't know. Anyway, they're quite annoying because you can't hit them whilst they're in their spike form. You can't do anything to them. I don't know why I paused so often. I think I was trying to work things out, but you would have thought with the strategy guide that I wouldn't need to pause. Oh well. Well, I don't know if everything I've said has been fascinating, but we're coming to the end of this episode now, and about to get the first key of the dungeon, which I suppose makes about as much sense as anything else in terms of where to end the episode. So, I guess that I will see you next time, when we'll continue exploring the water temple.